tragedy struck just after 5 o'clock this evening in a normally quiet neighborhood. Police say the suspect, who is a juvenile, opened fire along a walking trail in northeast Raleigh.
This is a sad and tragic day for the city of Raleigh.
Night terror has reached our doorstep. The nightmare of every community has come to Raleigh.
Approximately 9:37 tonight, the suspect in this incident was taken into custody. A white male juvenile was arrested by the Raleigh Police Department.
This morning, Raleigh is reeling from what North Carolina's governor is calling a nightmare. A mass shooting that left 5 dead and 3 injured, including the gunman. The violence began when that gunman, a juvenile, according to police, shot and killed an off-duty Raleigh police officer who was sitting in his car outside his home. Over the next few hours, 6 others were shot, including a Raleigh K-9 officer. Nearly half a dozen agencies, including North Carolina State Highway Patrol, were involved in the search for the shooter. That army of first responders eventually pinning the gunman down inside a barn where he shot himself. The shooter was rushed to the hospital for treatment. Raleigh police are still working to establish a motive as this community works to pick up the pieces.
According to the Gun Violence Archive, this is the 531st mass shooting in America this year, and the 24th time at least 4 people died in one incident.
Police are releasing very few details about the alleged shooter or his injuries, only that he is a juvenile and a white male.
And he was just walking, looking straight forward. He had his gun on his side, and it was pointed downwards, and he was just walking.
Sources tell WRAL News that 15-year-old Austin Thompson is the person hospitalized, suspected of killing 5 and injuring 2 others in a shooting spree in an East Raleigh neighborhood on Thursday. In an 8:30 a.m. press conference on Friday, Chief of Police Estella Patterson said the 15-year-old male shooter was in critical condition at Wake Med. Wake County District Attorney Lauren Freeman said she expected the suspect to be charged as an adult, despite his age. If the subject does survive, we will be proceeding with the intent of sending it to Superior Court, she said. In consideration of the mass number of lives lost, it's appropriate that this case be handled in Superior Court and that this individual prosecuted as an adult. Police on Friday identified the police officer who died as Officer Gabriel Torres, 29, saying he was on his way to work at the time of the shooting. James Thompson and 3 adults identified as Nicole Connors, 52, Mary Marshall, 34, and Susan Carnitz, 49, died. Rest in peace. In addition to the 5 killed, 2 others were injured. One of them was a Raleigh police officer who was treated and released from the hospital. Marciel Gardner, 59, was still at Wake Med on Friday in critical condition. He had to be between 13 and 16 max, said a witness who saw the shooter. He was a child. You just don't imagine things like that. You hear about school shootings and stuff, but to really see something like that in your neighborhood is just... Neighbors were shaken. A man named Robert, a Hedingham resident, told WRAL News that he called 911 around 5 p.m. I heard 2 gunshots, and they were really loud, so I knew something was close. And then I heard another gunshot. 3 gunshots. I saw him basically pass my house in the backyard. He had a long-barrel shotgun. He was dressed in camo. He had a full backpack that was also camouflage. And then he was able to evade officers for quite some time. It says in the search for the suspect, police, sheriff's deputies, and state troopers spread out in the neighborhoods along the noose. And K-9 officers searched in an area along the woods near the intersection of Tar Heel Club Road and Old Millburney Road. Part of New Bern Avenue was shut off, and access to and within Hedingham was limited for hours. The exit from eastbound Interstate 540 to Buffalo Road was also shut down, and traffic diverted to the north. Staff and students at nearby Beaver Dam were locked down, and the Marsh Creek Community Center and Buffalo Aquatic Center were both evacuated. Yet and still, They did not contain the teenage suspect until around 9:30 p.m. in an area off Mill Burney Road. Okay, well, this one stop. And they are getting younger. 15. We'll talk in the comments. See you there.
Officials say it was a single gunman who left a trail of terror across one Raleigh, North Carolina neighborhood, firing shot after shot, killing 5 people and wounding at least 2 others.
A large police presence here. They just trying to find out what happened.
Among those killed, an off-duty police officer who was sitting in his car. One witness, who does not want to be identified, says she saw the officer's final moments.
We heard the gunshots. I saw him, bleeding out in the car.
That would be the officer, the Raleigh police officer.
The off-duty cop, yes, sir.
It set off a nearly 4-hour manhunt, with officials combing the neighborhood, redirecting traffic, and warning residents to stay inside. Robert Anderson says he saw the gunman from his deck.
He had a camouflage shirt, camouflage pants. He had black boots, and he also had a backpack that was looked like it was filled to the brim.
He says his demeanor was eerily calm.
He was walking, and when I tell you he was walking, it was like nothing had happened. And he was just walking, looking straight forward. He had his gun on his side, and it was pointed downwards, and he was just walking.
Officials finally tracked the suspect to a nearby bar where he was holed up inside and ultimately taken into custody. Police are releasing very few details about the alleged shooter or his injuries, only that he is a juvenile and a white male. This morning, law enforcement agencies around the country are sending support for a police department and an entire community shaken to their core. Now, this morning, police are still investigating what exactly led up to this shooting, and they're not saying whether these victims were targeted or whether they were shot completely at random.
Sources say the suspect accused of opening fire in the East Raleigh neighborhood is 15-year-old Austin Thompson. He's in critical condition at Wake Med. Sources tell WRAL he has multiple injuries, including a gunshot wound to the head. It's unclear if that was self-inflicted or if he was shot by officers.
With a standoff that lasted 4.5 hours and a crime scene that spanned about 2 miles, killing spouses, mothers, a teenager, and an off-duty officer. Police releasing 20 911 calls, which truly gave us a painful account of the deadliest mass shooting in North Carolina this year.
Officer down. They're coming to you. They're right almost right. Yeah, I got one here now. I got one down. Male shot and shot. So what's going on there? She's bleeding.
There's somebody laying by the bush, and there's somebody laying on the porch.
The white kid ran out here with a shotgun. He shot somebody. The officer was shot. Yeah, he's an off-duty cop. I keep trying to say he works for Raleigh.
We heard some shots outside, and I looked out my window, and the neighbor is on the ground, I think.
I think I heard 3 or 4 gunshots. There were people screaming.
We heard some shots outside, and I looked out my window, and the neighbor is on the ground, I think.
Sometimes just came through with a shotgun and shot my buddy. Yes, sir. We're going to go ahead and get some help out there. You said he's been shot? Yeah. Shotgun? Yeah.
We heard some shots outside, and I looked out my window, and the neighbor is on the ground.
You said the attacker's still nearby? Yeah, he's on the News River Trail.
A minute-by-minute look at how first responders move quickly to try and save these victims' lives in the uncertain and dangerous situation in which they worked.
It's going to be an active shooter at this time.
Within minutes of the first shots fired, paramedics rushed to help.
All units proceed in at this time. We're still trying to get a victim count.
Not knowing what they would find, but quickly realizing how grave the situation was.
I've got one patient, CPR in progress, EMS 31 handling. Where is the location of the other patient?
2 patients down.
As they tried to save 2 victims' lives, a first responder called out a chilling sight.
Got a white male with a green shirt and AR-15 on Swahili. I don't know if that's PD or someone else.
Then on the greenway that wraps around this community, another
heartbreaking discovery.
RPD just made me aware that there is a female possible code 7 on the trail with a GSW to the head and 2 other patients. I need an EMS unit here.
But when they arrived, there was nothing they could do for the 2 women they found, and concerns about where the shooter was.
I have an RPD sergeant with me. The Greenway is still a very much active scene in the sense of not knowing where the subject is. If the ATVs want to hold off, because both of the patients on the Greenway that we found so far are the ones that District 1 called in as code 7.
It would be nearly 4 more hours before police contained the teenage suspect off Old Mill Bernie Road.
Now so many families are left broken, like Tracy's, questioning how something like this could happen to them.
How could one person do that to another person? Just can't believe it was him, especially.
Child.
15-year-old with a shotgun.